want to talk a little bit about the Haggadah, a couple of fundamentals. The first idea is like this. There's an interesting statement. The Gemara, the Chazal say the Jewish people, when they were in Egypt, they didn't change their names, their clothing, or their language. Now stop and think about that. They were there for 210 years. 210 years, they didn't change their names, their clothing, or their language, right? Which is pretty impressive. You know, in the United States, it didn't take the Jews long to look just like Americans. You know, they were walking around in Mitzrayim. They were still wearing streimels and gartlach and what do you call it? And they spoke Yiddish, and they were all called Velvel. You know, they didn't change their names. That's what Chazal say. On the other hand, it says that they were on the 49th level of impurity. They're on the 49th level of spiritual impurity. It says they had to get off. They would have been there one moment longer. They would have been at a point of no return. It would have been at the 50th gate of impurity. They were never got. They had to get out. So the question becomes: how do you reconcile those two statements? How can somebody be so devoted to Judaism, and on the other hand, they hit the 49th level of impurity? That's question number one. Okay, everybody got that. Question number two is we have a ritual. If everybody has been to a Pesach Seder, it's not your first Pesach. Okay, so when you get to the Pesach Seder, it says Kadesh Urchatz. You got to remember not to make a bracha this time. When you make Al Natilas Yadayim, don't make a bracha. Then we do karpas. Now karpas is you take a vegetable and you dip it into salt water. Take a vegetable, you dip it into salt water, and you have to eat less than a kazayas. And eat less than a kazayas because a kazayas is about 30 grams. You take a couple of bites of either carrot or celery or potato dipped in salt, and you eat less than a kazayas because otherwise you run into bracha problems. So you take the karpas, you dip it, and then you eat the karpas. Now what it's supposed to be, karpas is really supposed to be an appetizer. And here you run into, again, a very puzzling, a bit of an anomaly, because you take this appetizer and then you wait for about an hour or more until you get to the food, because you know you're going to do the Haggadah. Now, which, by the way, gentlemen, I recommend don't go wherever you are for the Pesach Seder. Don't go in starving, because it's going to get worse before it gets better, right? So don't eat a lot, but make sure you don't go famished, because you got a ways to go. For some people, it takes them a half hour just to get the seating straightened out at the table till everybody's seated, especially their young children there fighting over seats. So whatever you do, don't go famished. You know, you should have good appetite, and then but you're going to have a little while to wait. So you got this paradox. You got, on the one hand, you're eating an appetizer, on the other hand, you're then waiting. Why? There are two questions. Right, two questions we want to deal with. Okay. So the answer is like this. Let me ask you a question. Do you believe in Mashiach?
Yeah.
You do. Okay. Did you take a look at today's newspaper? Did you see a newspaper today or news headlines? No. Okay, let's say you would have. Right? Were you looking to see on the headline? No. Mashiach didn't come.
No.
Right? You didn't see. Did you feel a sense of disappointment? It wasn't on the headlines. You know, even from newspapers. You know, take a look at the Yated. Another government scandal. Yeah, okay, that's standard. You know, I wasn't looking for Mashiach. If it would say Mashiach has arrived, you know, I'd be pretty happy. I think. You know, be pretty happy. But I wasn't.
Before the paper would write it.
Let's say I woke up in the morning. Yeah, whatever it is. Bottom line is, did you call anybody to ask if you heard any news about Mashiach lately? No, they haven't heard. All right. Now, when you're at a bus stop, waiting for buses, you know, most people, you're at the bus stop. First, you walk over to the guy next to you. Atam chaker be'zman. First, you ask everybody, "Are you waiting a long time?" Hoping they'll say yes. Right at the bus stop, you hope they say. People are always asking, "How long are you?" Right? Okay, and then you're waiting, and you're looking. Is he here? Right? You're looking down the block. What time is he supposed to come? Right? Why? Because you believe. Right? You walk into the street. That really helps to walk into the middle of the street and look down and see if the bus is on the way. That's very helpful. And the reason you do that is because you believe the bus is coming. Right? Did you wake up? Did you go to sleep last night? Call it right before you went. Any news on Mashiach? The answer is there are different levels of belief. There's one level of belief. Yeah, we believe it. We're definitely believe there's going to be Mashiach. There's another thing that I would call tangible belief. Tangible belief means that I'm living with it so much that knowing Mashiach is coming is no different than knowing your mother-in-law is coming for a visit. Right? Your mother-in-law is coming for a visit. Like, Oh, did she? When's she coming? Right? Now you know she's coming. You believe that, and you know it's like, oh, yeah, oh, did she arrive yet? Oh, she did, huh? I mean, she did. You know, it's tangible belief. There are different types of belief. Now, the Jewish people in Mitzrayim are there for 210 years. 210 years they're in Mitzrayim. They had a very, very strong Jewish identity. Very strong. They didn't change their names, didn't change their clothing, didn't change their life. Tremendous strong identity. Did they believe while they're getting whipped and hit, did they believe that it's ever going to end? No. They believed it like we believe it. Yeah, one day there's going to be a Redeemer. Yeah, there's going to be a Redeemer. Two Jews are getting whipped and they're on their way to Shul. And on the way to Shul, you know, they're talking about a Redeemer. You know, talking about a Redeemer. We believe it, but are you living with it? You really, I mean, you believe it like you're waiting for it, like you're waiting for a bus? They didn't. And as a result of having a strong Jewish identity, you know, I hear an interesting phenomenon. There are a lot of Israelis who have left Israel, secular Israelis, left Israel, went to places like either West Germany or California or Toronto or Australia, became Baalei Tshuva there, then they came back to Israel. So the Kiruv sociologists have a theory, which is probably accurate. When you're in Israel, you have something of a Jewish identity, even if you're secular. The streets are closed on Yom Kippur, and a lot of Jews have a Pesach Seder, and they have Jewish names, unless they have a name like either Guy or Nimrod. They generally have Jewish names, standard Jewish names. They could once in a while they'll be at a bar mitzvah, but they're very Jewish. They eat Garinim, they say Yalla Bye, right? And so they're very Jewish, right? You're Jewish. It's our identity. Then all of a sudden you go off to West Germany, and you're among a bunch of Goyim, and then you start wondering, well, who am I? And you're all by yourself, you know, with a few other Israelis. You're by yourself, so you start searching, and when you start searching, you don't stop halfway. There's more to being Jewish than a falafel, right? So you start searching, and you become a Baal Tshuva. Because often Jewish identity, when I grew up in Chicago, there was a restaurant in Chicago called The Bagel. Jewish restaurant, by the way, it wasn't Italian. It was a Jewish restaurant called The Bagel, right? And The Bagel was a very Jewish restaurant. It had lox and bagel and chicken soup. The whole thing was treif. Couldn't eat there. But of course I didn't have a hechsher. It's a treif restaurant, but it's called The Bagel. And all the old Jews used to go there. I see all these old Jews going there. They spoke Yiddish. They had names like, you know, Anshel and Velvel, you know, they're all Jews. They're all Jews. They went to The Bagel, Jewish style bagel. They all spoke Yiddish. Some of them were communists. Some of them were atheists. You know, they didn't believe in anything. But they've got a strong Jewish identity. I remember once even in Israel, an old Russian woman, completely secular, cut out, you know, an older woman. She stopped me on the street and she said something to me in Yiddish. So I don't know Yiddish. I said to her, you know, first taste is Yiddish. So she says in Yiddish, "You don't understand Yiddish? Ashanda."
Oh, wow.
Right? Ashanda means like a calamity. Right? You don't know Yiddish? You don't know. I mean, here's a woman. She eats treif, doesn't keep shopping. You know, but mine not knowing Yiddish. They have a very strong Jewish identity. What happens is when you have a strong Jewish identity, you are entrenched in place. There's no movement. And so you could have a strong Jewish identity and be on the 49th level of impurity. The Jewish people are settled in their place. They're not moving. They're not going anywhere. We'll be redeemed. One day we'll be redeemed. Yeah, you know, but you're more or less, there's no motivation to grow as a Jew. When you're not growing, you're stagnating. When you stagnate, you hit the 49th level of Tumah. You can keep Shabbos and kosher and still be on the 49th level of Tumah. Number one. Number two, Moshe Rabbeinu arrives. Okay? Now, I want to ask you a question. Think about the following. Imagine man has chronic knee pain. Constant chronic knee pain. He's had it for years. Goes to the doctor, and the doctor says to him, "Listen, I got a pill over here. You take this pill. You'll be free of pain for 24 hours. No side effects. No side effects. Take a pill, let me know how it is." Guy goes home, takes the pill, and for the first time in years, he's free of pain. 24 hours, no pain whatsoever. This is unbelievable. Goes back to the doctor and says, "It was great. I'll take a prescription." The doctor says, "I'd love to give you one, but the Food and Drug Administration hasn't okayed yet. Some bureaucratic tie-up over there. They haven't okayed it yet. It'll be on the market in 6 months." Now, I want to ask you a question. Will the pain over the next 6 months, will it annoy you more or annoy you less than it did up until this point?
More. Less.
More.
Why do you say less?
Because you already know that you're going to feel better. It's not going to continue on.
Right.
So you are just waiting for that.
Right. There is merit to that argument, but most people will tell you it'll annoy you more. I didn't say it'll hurt you more, but it'll annoy me more. I'm annoyed that I have to go through this pain because some bureaucrat didn't sign a paper. That's why I got to. It's one thing I got used to it. It's a chronic condition. Okay, so there's knee pain. So deal with it. You live with it. You learn to live with things. But once it's available, now I got to go through. What do I got to go through this for? That's very annoying.
The annoying part, yeah, but the hurting part.
I didn't say the hurting. I said that's why I said annoying. It will annoy me more, knowing that there's relief, and all it is a bunch of bureaucrats, a bunch of bureaucrats who have an agenda. Okay. There's a medrash that says when Moshe Rabbeinu arrived, he showed up. He said the code word, pakod pakadati. The Redeemer is here. Great news. I mean, could you imagine what was going on in the shuls? Wow, did you hear the news? Yeah, people are calling each other, probably sending faxes. You know, did you hear the Redeemer's here? You know, emails, everything. You know, the Redeemer's there, the Mashiach is there. The Redeemer from Egypt, Moshe Rabbeinu is here, and everybody believes it, and everybody knows it, and this is it. We're all getting ready. And then the Medrash says Moshe Rabbeinu left, and he was away for 6 months. Now, why don't I ask you a question? During those next 6 months, first of all, how many Jews, do you think that Lashon Hara improved or got worse during those 6 months?
Much worse.
He got worse?
6 months, Moshe is gone. And
Moshe is gone after he's showed up, and now people know there's going to be a Redeemer?
No,
I
but
think it got
I'm
less.
thinking in the
They were
sense
doing
of
more
like
tshuva.
people speaking Lashon Hara about Moshe saying.
Not
"Where is
about
this guy?"
Moshe, about in general.
Oh, in general.
You know
People are
what?
scared,
Do you
so it
think?
goes down.
Forget it. Minyan attendance. Do you think it improved or didn't improve?
Improved.
It definitely improved. Once you know the Mashiach was here, hey, whoa, everybody's all of a sudden going to Minyan and Daf Yomi, and everybody's everybody's coming to Shira time at 9:30 in the morning. It's unbelievable. Everybody steps up all of a sudden. Why? Because he's really here. When they got up in the morning, what do you think was the first conversation?
Is he gonna be? Am I gonna
Did you
see
hear
him?
any word? Did you hear anything? You know, the people, everybody's going onto their smartphones. You know, let's say I got any news over Moshe Rabbeinu, slow motion over here. Let's see. No, everybody's frantic about it. Why? Because the Jewish people need to be aroused. They were aroused already to get motivated to start growing. So I'll get to you one second. So Moshe Rabbeinu, the Loaves, he disappears for 6 months. During those 6 months, the Jewish people are now pumped up. They've broken out of their complacency. Now they're starting to move, and there's a little bit more chesed and less lashon hara, and people are learning, and people are moving. And now, because now we really believe it, he's actually here. We tangibly felt it. That was the entire goal of Moshe Rabbeinu. I need to wake you up and realize, now earn it a little bit for these 6 months. Same thing when it comes to karpas. You know what karpas is? You're hungry when you get to the Pesach Seder? You're going to get hungry. You know why? Take a bite of karpas. There's always one frum kid in there and saying, less than a kazayas, less than a kazayas. Make sure it's less than a, you're not supposed to eat a kazayas. So there's always one brisker there who tell you less than a kazayas. And no matter how much you eat, he's going to tell you that was almost a kazayas, right? He's always going to, he's always going to nail it. Less than a kazayas, less than a kazayas. And then you eat it and you think, boy, now I'm really hungry. And the Mefarshim say, the Shem Yishmuel says, that is supposed to be symbolic of arousing us to believe in a redemption. The same way that you can't wait for the food now, same way you can't wait for the food, that's what we're eating the karpas is supposed to wake us up. The anticipation of the karpas, of the food, is supposed to be the anticipation we're supposed to feel when it comes to the redemption. That's the idea. That's the idea behind it. And therefore, what do you call it? So you have both questions are answered. Number one, they didn't change their names, clothing, and identity, but that could create a situation of complacency. And number two, the karpas is to break out of the complacency so we become a little more enthusiastic. Please, question.
What happened with the Egel Azahar? I mean, it wasn't 6 months, it wasn't even 1 day.
Right,
And they went crazy. They made a statue.
right.
What happened there?
What happened there
I mean,
is...
we know what happened, but you see, that was 6 months, and that was, what, a few hours even. He was about
Okay, we don't understand the temptation. Apparently, it was. Remember, they were in a panicky state. They were in a total panic at that point because of the desert. And Moshe Rabbeinu said, "I'll be back," and it's the first time he missed on something that he said. Up until that point, he was dead on accurate. He was accurate here too, but they miscalculated. But here's a man who the Gemara talks about how, he was precisely at midnight, and he used a different expression because he doesn't want to be off even by a second. Now, this man was very precise. It was the original Yekeh. And all of a sudden he says to them, okay, I'll be back. And now 6 hours had passed. You're alone in the desert. He's never missed before. They say, he's not coming. So they're in a panicky state.
They were still in Egypt, and they said, well, at least we know, you know the enemy, you trust the enemy that you know, not the one you know. In other words,
it's a difficult test, but the point here is that as a Seder, that's what we want to do. Yeah. Moshe Mordechai.
Why didn't somebody, like groups of people just went to see him, go find him?
The mountain.
That's a good question. I don't want to go into the Egel now. I don't want, this is good. They weren't allowed up the mountain and so on and so forth. Different answers. Okay, let's go on. Now, the Seder begins where after you've washed and you get ready, they have the Mani Shtana. Now, the Mani Shtana is the 4 questions that are asked at the Seder. And then they have there's always the little kid who they've been training him all year, the 5-year-old son who's been training him all year to get up and sing in front of all the guests. And on Seder night, he probably goes to sleep earlier than he's gone to sleep all year. Right? The kid just can't take it. Then there's always one girl who is willing to sing it, but nobody wants to hear it from her because she's a girl. But there's like one girl who sings it, but the boy, who's the main guy, is supposed to be. He went to sleep. You've been training and waiting for him all year to do this. Now they're training him. Lila Seder, he's exhausted. Right? It's like it always works that way. I remember my oldest son. I couldn't wait to take him to shul on Simchas Torah. Simchas Torah, I wanted to take him to shul. I think he was 3 years old, 4 years old. Okay, this year we're going to take Simchas Torah. He dances fast asleep. Went to sleep about 6 o'clock in the evening. Never went to sleep. And I was crushed. My wife said, "It's okay. Another one next year. Just relax. It's not, nothing's going to happen. Just relax. It'll be okay." So that's now. We go to the Mani Shtana. And you got these 4 questions, and there's the paradox, and there's 2 questions about why we're doing this or why we're doing that. You have the 4 questions. Underlying the 4 questions is one bigger idea here. There's one, what's the real idea of Mani Shtana? So remember we mentioned several times, what's the definition of a free man? What is the definition of freedom? What was the definition of freedom? 5 words or less. Your time is your own. That's the definition of freedom. Your time is your own. That's the definition of freedom. Freedom is your time is your own. When your time belongs to somebody else, when you have a boss, when you have a wife, when you have a commitment of any sort where there is a time restraint on you, you are no longer free. A free man means your time is your own. As soon as you're accountable to somebody, your time is not your own, you are no longer free. Now, that's one definition of freedom. What is the definition of a slave? A slave is somebody who does what he's told. That's the definition of a slave. Being a slave is bad. And somebody who's a slave does what he's told. When you're in the military and you're told to do something, nobody in the military says to an you're not allowed, if they say it, they're in trouble. When you get a command from a higher officer and you say to him, "But sir, why?" What's the response to that? That was a command, private. That was an order. That's it. Still. Say another word, you're going to be court-martialed. That's the way it works. You're not free. You're told what to do, and you don't ask questions. Here, at the night of the Seder, what are we trying to demonstrate? We're free. We're free men. So what's the ultimate demonstration of freedom as we start the Seder? Mani Shtana, we ask a question. It's not just the content of the question. The content of the question has to be analyzed, it has to be understood. But the fact that we're even asking a question is the greatest definition that we're free. Because you don't ask questions when you're being told what to do. Right? When you're told, you're given an order by a superior, and you're not free, you're not independent, then you have to do it. But if the person turns around and says, "Why are we doing this?" Right, and 4 of them. 4 let's start off with 4 questions. Oh, you're free. Either you're free or you're Jewish, one of the 2 of them. You're free. Question, why? Why are we doing this? Good. There's underlying theme is because a free man doesn't ask questions, a slave does, and we are free men on the Seder night. We're symbolic of cherus, of liberation. So we start off, there's no accident, we start off with a question. Okay, now you got if you look at we talk about avodim hayinu. Avodim hayinu l'parvim Mitzrayim, we say the paragraph avodim hayinu. And how does that paragraph end? The more you speak about the exodus of Egypt, you're praiseworthy. Everybody in the room should go. If a person speaks about Yisrael, what does everybody do in the room, Chaim? If you speak a lot about Yitzias Mitzrayim, everybody goes, shh. You're praiseworthy. Now, it doesn't say anywhere in halacha, the blacker your tefillin are, the more praiseworthy you are. Somebody whose tefillin are really painted black, well, he's praiseworthy. Somebody who's got long tzitzis, wow, he's praiseworthy. It doesn't say that ever in any other area of halacha. It never says harizim meshubach. Doesn't say that anywhere. Somebody who keeps Shabbos religiously and eats a lot of cholent on Shabbos, harizim meshubach. Right? Doesn't say that. Doesn't say that anywhere. Right? It doesn't say that anywhere. Somebody who fasts on Yom Kippur right? And he really, the fast really hurts. You know, he really suffers, but he makes it through. Harezim Meshuach. No, call him Rabbi Yisrael. If somebody speaks a lot about Yitzhak, Harezim, he's praiseworthy. Why? What's so praiseworthy about it? Why are you praiseworthy? What's the whole idea of speaking a lot about Yetzias Mitzrayim? Why this is such an issue? We speak about Yetzias Mitzrayim. Okay, so the idea is like this. The idea is like this. Did you ever have an experience in life? Here, saw the game last night, right? Right? Saw the game last night. How many people, I'm just using an example, you don't mind. How many people have you told it about that since you've seen it last night? What would you estimate?
Like 4 or 5.
4 or 5. That's only because you've only seen 4 or 5 people since then, right? Anybody who you've seen who you suspect is remotely interested in it, you know, Rabbi Geffen, South Africa was, basketball, but somebody who's remotely interested in it, you've gone over and said, why? Because you're all excited about it. Not only excited, why are you excited? You experienced it. You experienced it. Imagine the team, imagine the Villanova team. Do you think they've been talking about the game? There you go, all night long, right? Inebriated or otherwise, they've been talking about the game, right? Why? Because when something happens to you in life and you feel it, and it's a good thing especially, you're just buzzing. You can't. You just everybody you see, even strangers on the street. You just talk to everybody you meet. Somebody has a baby. Anybody? Hey, Mazel, we had a boy. Mazel, strangers on the street. See the bus driver. Good morning. Hi, how are you? Yeah, great. I just had a boy. Mazel tov. Everybody you see because you're excited about it. When you speak about Yetzias Mitzrayim, it's not telling you that Kol HaMarbe, it's not just the mitzvah. People usually understand this as it's a bit, wow, what a Harezim Meshubach. He's speaking about Yetzias Mitzrayim. Wow, he's really doing the mitzvah well. He stays up all night on Pesach night talking about Yetzias Mitzrayim. Yeah, that's true. That's certainly true. But it's more than that. Not just that this concept doesn't just mean it's a mitzvah. It means it's an indication. It indicates that you genuinely believe it, you genuinely feel it. What's the indication? The indication is you feel an urge to talk about it. Not that you're forcing yourself to talk about it. If you feel the urge to talk about it, that means you really sense that you've gone out of Egypt. You really sense everybody has to see themselves as having gone out of Egypt. Right? You really feel it. The more you talk about it, again, we're talking about over here that you could force yourself to talk about it. But the ultimate sign is when you effortlessly talk about it. You're just buzzed up. Hi, what's doing? There were frogs in Egypt. Could you? And it doesn't say it's glowing. But I knew a kid was a Pesach Seder. So different people use different props at the Seders. Some people throw cotton balls for hail. When they get to the mark of hail, they also they throw cotton balls up. And just as an idea, or where there's kingdom, different things. So one kid I knew was a kid in different yeshiva. So he was sitting at the Pesach Seder. They went to Dam. Then they went to Tzfardea. He had a live frog under the table, and as soon as they said Tzfardea, he opened the cage, and the frog started jumping around the room. So the women were screaming, the men were laughing, and while the women were basically hysterical. And he said to them, okay, now just imagine this is only one of them. Imagine if it was millions, right? So they had no choice. He was from their family, so they had to invite him back to next year's Seder. But they made rules and preconditions about what happens as far as what you bring into the Seder as a prop. Anyway, it's a bad idea because then you get into all sorts of Shabbos questions about hunting and trapping and that sort of thing. So don't bring any live creatures, especially when you get to the wild animals. You get the Orov, nobody bring a pet cougar to the table. Hi everybody, Pesach Seder, yeah, here's my cougar, or a pet, or a cobra or a lion. Bad idea, that's not being a good guest. But at the end of the day, the idea here is that a person should try to feel as much as possible the enthusiasm of what happened, and you should bubble over as opposed to being. Again, we're talking about levels, over different levels, and if you're not at that level, talk about it. Sometimes you have to sometimes just talking about it actually causes the feeling. Okay, now one of the people here who gets most of the day, there are 4 sons that are described at the Pesach Seder. Right? There are 4 sons that are described. Remarkably, if you take a look at the Haggadahs and you take a look at the commentary on the Haggadahs, who do you think gets the most attention?
The Russia.
That's right. The Russia gets the most attention. The Russia, you got the Chacham, the Russia, the Tam, The Tam is the simple son. The Enya de Elishal, he's clueless. Like, oh, what's going on, right? He's clueless.
Like
And he got it.
news, Rabbi.
What's that?
Just like in the news.
What's that?
The rush always gets the most attention.
That's true. That's true. That's true. And they're much more crime reported than goodness. That's true. Oh yeah, today 3 guys on the street gave out bread today. You know, everybody their ratings would plummet. So now once we talk about slitting throats, now you're going to get the attention. That's absolutely true. In the literature, the Russia gets the most attention. All right, now if you take a look at the structure of the Haggadah, so the Russia in the Chacham ask very close to the same question. There's only one change. You know what the change is? The change is based on the psukim in the Torah where each one of them speaks. Okay? Now what does the pasuk say? So in Parshas Bo, where it's talking about the Russia, he says like this, in Perek Yud Beis pasuk Chav Vav. V'haya ki yomer aleichem b'neichem, it'll be when your children say to you, Ma ha'avoda azos lachem. What is this avoda? What is this service? Okay? That is a description of the Russia. That's the pasuk that it says at the Haggadah. The Chacham, it says in Vayeschanan, Vav Ches, Ki yisholcha bin chalemer, when your son asks you in the future, Ma ha'edos v'achukim mishpatim she'ertziva Hashem l'keichem eschem. What are all these statutes and all these rules and laws that Hashem has commanded you? So what does the Russia say? The Russia says, Ma v'haya ki yomru aleichem b'neichem, v'haya ki yomru aleichem b'neichem, will be when your children say to you, Ma avodah zos lachem, what is this work that you're doing? What is this service you're doing? And by the Chacham, it says, Ki yisholcha bin chamach, when your son asks you in the future, what are all these rules and statutes and laws? Okay, what's the difference between the Chacham and Russia? What does it boil down to? It boils down to the fact that the Russia, when it introduces his pasuk, it says, Ki yomru lachem, when they say to you.
Yeah.
In the Chacham it says, V'haya ki yisholcha, when it doesn't say V'haya, it says, Ki yisholcha, when he asks you. So we've mentioned this several times, gentlemen. Just because something is said in question form does not mean that it was a question. If somebody comes over to you and you're sitting in a restaurant or on the bus, and some secular guy walks over and says, "Hey, why don't the yeshiva guys go to the army?" Was that a question? No, it was a statement. It was a statement in question form. It's futile to try to answer him. What does the father do at the Seder when the Russia is there? He turns to everybody else and says, if this guy was with us in Egypt, he would have never gotten out. The Russia asks a question, the father turns to everybody and says, if this guy was in Egypt, he wouldn't have gotten out. So the father's done 2 things. Number 1, he doesn't bother answering because you didn't ask a question. You made a statement. Somebody makes a statement, my response to the statement is, oh. Well, I think that, I think the Torah was man-made. Okay. I can argue with you. You're entitled and non-entitled. You're wrong. I'm not going to argue with you. You want to ask me? I'll ask you. Ask me. You want to know how do we have indications, proof? I'll be glad to answer you. I'm not going to bother wasting my breath on you. You didn't ask a question. But I don't want anybody else to be influenced. So I turn to everybody else at the table. I say, by the way, this guy wouldn't have gotten out of Egypt. I don't want you to be influenced by what he's saying, but I'm not going to answer you. You are willing, you are receptive. So those who are receptive, I'll talk to. You're not receptive. You're a cynic who's sitting there. By the way, when people are cleaning for Pesach, sometimes people start. I was about in yeshiva before I was married. So I knew a lady living here in Israel. One of the easiest going, sweetest ladies I ever met. Nothing rattled her, nothing bothered her. I came to visit. I came to the house to see her. I had to see her about a week before Pesach. As I come walking up the walkway, she's standing outside, and she's got her hands on her hips like this. I didn't even say anything. I just walked up to say hello. Right on the walkway up to her house. I'm about to say hello before she looks at me and goes, David, I just can't take any more of this. This is just, I've had this cleaning. It's just, I was like, whoa, I didn't even do anything. I just showed up. What happened? What happened? The answer is it gets overwhelming. But when a person starts complaining about it, you're no different than the Russia. The Russia says, what is all this service? What are you doing now? When we start complaining about Pesach cleaning, that means that we're essentially complaining because we're supposed to be doing it with a smile, Mr. Fogel. Whatever we're told to do, right? Even if it means eating shalach manas from Purim till Pesach, right? That's what it's got to be done, all right? Yeah, that's what it's got to be, and we got to do it with a smile. So when a person complains, don't complain. The Chacham, the Chacham's asking a question, and you see what kind of question. What are all these laws and details? He wants to know all the details of it, and so everything about it. So there's one of the first he compares it to says there was a man, he had a store, he had a fabric store. He's got a worker who's working in the fabric store, and his son is in the business. The worker goes home every night, complains to his wife, I'm getting paid less than I deserve more pay. And it's a backbreaking work, and it's a dead-end job, and I hate it. I got to go to work every day. The boss's son comes home every day, says, Dad, can I ask you a few questions? That fabric, which is cheaper? Now, what do you use for curtains? Starts asking questions. Where do I purchase it from? What's the difference between the two of them? The difference is that the first guy, who's a hired worker, is not interested in the business at all. He's doing it. I got to do it because I got to do it, and if I could get out of it, I would. And the son is the guy who's going to go into the business and inherit the business. Well, I'm going to go into this. I want to know this business. That's the difference between the Rasha and the Chacham. The Rasha is, listen, what can I do? I was born into this. Here I am. I'm at the Seder. What do you want from me? I'm at the Seder. Just give me some matzah and let's go home. Minimal obligations I'll do. He's at the Seder. How bad could he be? But he's not really into it. It's all a bunch of avoda. What I got to get involved with this for? The Chacham is sitting at the Seder. Why do you do that? Why do you wash twice on each hand? And then when in the morning it's 3, I got to know every detail. Every halacha, he's got to know about everything. Why? Because he's into it. He's moving into it. When you're moving into it, you're doing it properly. So at that point, you're really interested in it. Then you want to know every detail. That's the difference between them. Okay. That is as far as the right. Any questions on any of this? Any questions on any of this? Okay. The last point is that we say by Lavan, and it says, Tzei Umad. The Haggadah says, look what Lavan wanted to do. Lavan wanted to destroy everybody. Now, the truth of the matter is that we don't find he wanted to destroy them. It doesn't say in the Chumash he wanted to destroy them. He chased after them, but it doesn't say openly he wanted to destroy them. And God comes to him. He was angry at Yaakov. He wasn't going to kill his own daughters. Where do you see he was going to kill his own daughters? Rachel and Leah were his own daughters. Bilhah and Zilpah were his daughters from a concubine. Where would you see he was going to kill them? And God comes to him in a dream and he says, back off. Back off. Don't start with him. So the commentaries say that the same way that we don't say it, doesn't say openly. It's only that we have a tradition in the Haggadah. You know what? Lavan did want to kill them. It doesn't say it in the text. So how do we know? Because the Haggadah says, you know what, in Lavan's heart of hearts, he wanted to kill us. The commentators say, in every generation, they want to kill us. And there's stuff that we don't even know about. Stuff that we don't even know about. We don't know what's going on we don't know what's going on in the back room of the White House. And you don't know what's going on in the Kremlin. You don't know what's going on in Iraq. You have no idea. You read the newspapers, you think you know what's going on. You don't know what plots they have and what they would like to do. And therefore, the same way that by Lavan, he wanted to kill us, because Haggadah says, we believe that. Yet, in every generation, the miracles are done. We're still here. We're still here, and everybody else is in the dust heap of history. That's the lesson of Haggadah. All right, gentlemen. Everybody have a Chag Kosher v'Sameach. You know, the Gemara says more than the cow, more than the calf wants to nurse, the mother cow wants to milk it. You ever hear that expression? Yeah. More than the calf wants to nurse. So the Gemara uses that for somebody who's teaching Torah. More than the students want to learn, the teacher wants to teach. So I appreciate it, gentlemen. You come every day, you know. And everybody should have a Chag Kosher v'Sameach. And that means, don't refer to me as a cow, but that's just the analogy. But everybody should have the calves should all have a Chag Kosher v'Sameach, and try to look over a little bit the halachas of Pesach and the Haggadah a little bit. Try to contribute when you go to the Seder, and then we'll see you back in Mitzvah Hashem. Everybody have a good Ben Azman.